Hello everyone, and welcome to some Modern today. The card I am going to be talking about a decent amount of is this card, Stoneforge Mystic. 2-mana 1/2 creature. Comes into play, search your library for an equipment, and then you reveal it, you put it into your hand. 1 white and a colorless, tap it, put an equipment from your hand onto the battlefield. This is the card that has just recently come off the banned and restricted list. I think that there's a lot of different homes, a lot of different places you can play with Stoneforge Mystic, and Jeskai Tempo is definitely one of the decks that got a huge boost from having access to this card. So let's talk about this deck. This deck is a Jeskai deck. It's got a bunch of blue, red, and white lands. Pretty straightforward mana base. I've gone with the 2 Colonnade, 2 Field of Ruin split. You really do want to have a bunch of colored lands that come into play untapped because you want to be able to curve out with your interactive spells and then your creatures. You need white on turn 2 for your Stoneforge Mystic. And then we've got even creatures at 3 mana. As far as our 1 mana interactive spells, Path to Exile, Lightning Bolt, I think you want to just be maxing out on 1 mana interaction because we've added some additional threats at the 2 and 3 mana slots. So I'd rather have 4 Lightning Bolts than, say, 3 Helix, 3 Bolt. So I've gone with 2 Lightning Helix, 4 Snap. Having having a bunch of 1 mana cards are going to make your Snapcaster Mages better. And you want to have a lot of random creatures. You want to have some random creatures that you can just have on the battlefield because they're going to make your equipments better. One Logic Knot, there's not as much counter magic in this build as more of a Jeskai Control build. This is not a Jeskai Control deck. It is Jeskai Tempo. We've got 1 Force of Negation. This is a card that I think has some value in the format. It's needed against the unfair decks, but there's not quite as many of them, right? So you need it against something like a Neoform deck, but in general, it's a lot of the time it's going to be an overcosted negate. 2 copies of Geist of St. Traff. So this is a card that I think has a ton of value with the equipments because it's a creature that your opponent cannot deal with because it has hexproof. And then once you put a sword, put a Batterskull on, equip that to the Geist, it's going to be just super tough for the opponent to answer. Going back years and years, Jeskai has had access to this card, and it's been really nice in the Tempo variant of the deck. We've also got 2 copies of Vendilion Click. We know more about this one. It's a 3 mana creature. Having the evasive part of the click is really nice with the equipment. And then we've got 1 Sword of Fire and Ice, 1 Batterskull. So Batterskull is the obvious one. You have to play that. It's just the best equipment with the Stoneforge Mystic. And then you want to play 1 more equipment. Sometimes your opponent's going to answer the Batterskull. Sometimes you're going to have it in your opener, and you're going to want another equipment to be able to search for. So in this build with the 4 Stoneforge Mystics, you want another equipment. You could play a build with, say, 2 or 3 Stoneforge Mystics and only play just the Batterskull. Here, though, we're kind of more all-in on the equipment, so we're playing the Sword of Fire and Ice, which is going to be really good against any type of blue and red deck, and it's just overall, I think, the most powerful of the Sword cycle. 3 copies of Electrolyze. This may stand out to some of you all watching because most versions play 1 or 2 Electrolyze. I'm playing the full 3. I think Electrolyze has gotten better. It kills opposing Stoneforges really nicely. Just deal 2 damage to a thing, draw a card. It's one of my favorite cards. Just having some form of card advantage in the deck that isn't a Stoneforge Mystic or a Snapcaster. I like it a lot. It's one of my pet cards. 2 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor. There are not many Planeswalkers in this deck that may stand out a bit. It's a different version of Jeskai. The only Planeswalker in the entire list is this card, Jace the Mind Sculptor. Jace the Mind Sculptor is still a good, powerful Planeswalker, and sometimes you'll want to put a Stoneforge or an equipment back into your library with the Brainstorm effect. So yeah, 2 copies of it, and then 3 Cryptic Commands. You still need some card draw, some card advantage in Cryptic Command. A great way to fill that role. Sideboard-wise, 3 Stony Silence. I think that Urza is a big deck right now. There's other decks like Hardened Scales, Affinity, different artifact decks where you're going to want Stony Silence. And you can still play Stony Silence in a deck with Stoneforge Mystic. It is not good along with your Sword of Fire and Ice, but say getting a Batterskull off of a Stoneforge, you can still activate the Stoneforge, put the Batterskull on the battlefield. It's still going to be a 4/4, so it still has some relevancy. I don't mind having Stoneforge and Stony Silence in the same deck at once. 3 Damping Spheres. So I think that with the recent banned and restricted announcements, Tron is one of those unfair decks that not only has gotten better, but it's also one of the weakest matchups for the Jeskai Tempo deck. Damping Sphere is one of the best cards there. It is also good against Storm. So I think we're going to still be seeing a lot of this card, Damping Sphere. I like it. It has some other applications in the format. 1 Crumble to Dust is for Valakut and Tron. Dispel is a nice counterspell. Ceremonious Redaction, you can board this in against the Eldrazi decks as well as the Tron decks and the Artifact decks, so it's a pretty versatile card. Sword and Feast and Famine. So this is our 3rd equipment in the list. There's going to be matchups for sure where we want the Sword and Feast of Famine instead of the Sword of Fire and Ice. This one is also very powerful. Being able to untap all of our lands the turn where we go for the Sword and Feast of Famine is nice, because then we can have our untapped lands for maybe a counterspell. The discard is relevant. The protection from green. And so yeah, this is I like having access to the 3rd sword. Force of Negation for those combo decks. I don't like packing the 3 or 4 of these because there's not many matchups where I want that many of them, but the second one I think is reasonable. Engineered Explosives. We don't actually have Supreme Verdict or any mass removal in the deck because we have a decent amount of creatures in our deck, so we're not really going down that path. Engineered Explosives is a nice flexible way of getting multiple permanents off the battlefield at once. Wear Tear, flexible removal, another counterspell in the Dovin's Veto, and a Celestial Purge. I really think this card is important to have access to. Gets rid of the Black Planeswalkers, a bunch of cheap red creatures flying around right now. So I like this deck. I think this is a really good initial take on Jeskai. Definitely stay tuned for the games. We're going to see plenty of Stoneforge Mystic action. If you are looking to see what this card is capable of, let's go ahead and play some games with the deck. Okay, so we're going to be on the play. And yeah, seems like a keeper. We do have a Stoneforge Mystic in our hand. So it's just a matter of what land we want to play. Turn 1, do we want to Serum Visions immediately, not knowing what the matchup is? I kind of want to just play this Hallowed Fountain. Play this Flooded Strand, get a Hallowed Fountain off of it, and then proceed from there. Okay. So now we know we're against Burn, right? So that gives us a bit more info as to how to proceed. We're just gonna jam this Stoneforge and get a copy of Batterskull. So our opponent's gonna need to, like, optimally on their side, they want a Searing Blaze, right? They want to be able to immediately get rid of this Mystic. That would be a problem. Hopefully that does not happen, but it did. Because the problem is that they're, like, the reason why Searing Blaze there is so good is they get to get rid of our creature and it's a burn spell. So it's a double whammy, essentially. So we could end of turn this Vendilion Click. I think I like that. Could upkeep it or draw step it, but let's see what happens. Okay, Monastery Swift Spear. So we can't counter that. We could potentially bolt it. Eidolon. So one option is to Vendilion Click right here before the attacks. I think that's fine because we then have a blocker, and we can bolt the Eidolon later. So let's Vendilion Click our opponent's hand, see what types of burn they have. Just take the Boros Charm. So we now know that they have a Bloodstained Mire. They have a Bloodstained Mire, a Lightning Bolt, and one unknown card. We're pretty priced into this block because we just want to preserve our life total if at all possible. Actually, this is not a bad card to draw. We can just fire that off here on the Eidolon, or we can go for a bolt into Serum Visions, which does allow us to see more cards that way. So I think this is close. I'm going to go with the bolt play because it allows us to see more cards. We really want an untapped land for next turn. So, yeah, we're going to prioritize this Sacred Foundry. Also, we drew Path to Exile, which is... We're going to prioritize, the basic island. We drew Path to Exile, which is actually a pretty good card to draw in case our opponent has a Goblin Guide or a Swift Spear here. We do have a way to get that off the battlefield. And then we're just going to play this Batterskull and hope that we're not dead. So, bang. Get this onto the board. This is the card, right? That we have all been talking about as one of the major... I mean, this goes with the unbanning really well. Just the main equipment that you're going to play with your Stoneforge Mystic. Unfortunately, our opponent has found a lot of burn, so we are probably not favored to win just because they have 2 draws. They can pop the Sunbaked Canyon, but the fact that they're popping the canyon means that they need to find the burn spell right now. If they don't find it, and we actually get in the hit, which I guess they didn't find it, so we are going to win that game. Really interesting sometimes how those games against burn play out. Alright, so after sideboard, what do we want to do? We can board in a Celestial Purge, which is a decent removal spell. Not a great card in this matchup, but I think it's playable. Dispel is good. I think Dovin's Veto is pretty solid. We just want to be lowering our curve if possible. Force of Negation is an interesting one because a lot of the time they will be casting cards on their turn. I think we can cut the Sword of Fire and Ice because Batterskull is just, like, it's lights out. So it's either going to be Batterskull working for us or, like, nothing, I guess. Going to cut an Electrolyze. Board in the second Force of Negation. Still a little bit medium on it, but yeah, we're just going to shave on some of our more expensive cards. This looks okay. Like, if Force can counter a burn spell, that could be the difference in a game. Here we have a pretty reasonable keep. Gonna get the Batterskull. Now the second Stoneforge is not good, because we cut down to only one equipment in our deck, which is... This is a danger of doing that, is you can draw multiple Stoneforges, and then the second one doesn't do quite as much. It still represents something. So that was a mistake. I was supposed to sack the Flooded Strand end of turn. That was just a misclick there. Hopefully it doesn't... Yeah, that was just bad. I should have gotten a red source, but I apologize. Sometimes we make misclicks when we're talking, which I did. So I'm just gonna get the basic there. If we draw a red spell, it kind of sucks that we're not able to cast it at the moment. But there's a lot more blue and white spells in our deck. Like, as far as red spells go, we've got Lightning Bolt, like one copy of Electrolyze. The 2 copies of Lightning Helix, those are very important. We drew Geist of Saint Traft. I kind of still want to play the Stoneforge Mystic, because it gets the Batterskull into play a turn earlier, basically. And if our opponent had a searing effect, they would have cast it on the previous turn, most likely, to deal with our first Stoneforge Mystic, because I believe they used, a 3 damage burn spell on it. Here's an Eidolon, which is fine. We're still on the win with Batterskull plan. But now we may have to either Celestial Purge this, or just throw a Snapcaster out is reasonable as a blocker. Okay, there goes that Sunbaked Canyon. So we're gonna end up... Okay, they do have a Goblin Guide. That's fine. We're gonna take some damage this turn, and there was really no getting around taking some damage. We had to play the Hallowed Fountain tapped because we should have played it tapped, because we wanted the untapped 5th land, and we didn't know our opponent was going to find a creature. Path to Exile on top of our deck. I think I'll just play this 2/1. Just because we have another snap in hand. And then we're going to get out this Batterskull. Our opponent knows we have it, so it's just going to be a matter of if our opponent draws a 3 damage burn spell. Basically, the exact same situation as the first game. And they did not find it. Okay, so we're on the draw here, and our opponent's on the mulligan. We're going to keep with double Stoneforge in hand. We've got action, not knowing the matchup. Could be some sort of, Jundi style deck, but our opponent didn't have a discard spell there on turn 1. I think I'll just play the Steam Vents. Lots of lands, so we're not looking for more lands at this point. Oh, it's a Wrenchmind. I was not expecting that. Okay. Do we want lightning bolts? Against Wrench Mind. That is a... I don't know the answer to that. I also don't know which of these lands we want to prioritize. I'm gonna pitch a land in the bolt. Keep the two Stoneforges just in case our opponent deals with the first one. Having drawn the land, drawing a fourth land, maybe I wish a little bit that I had gone the other way. Now we have an artifact. We could pitch the Batterskull to another Wrench Mind, which having artifacts against it is pretty good because you can just discard one card. Not that we will necessarily want to do that. So there's a Lily. I'm not entirely surprised to see that, to be honest. So we could go Snap Bolt, but I kind of want to just play second Stoneforge Mystic. We don't really care about Lily getting up to 2 loyalty. So this is the discard, a version of the rack deck. Like they might have cards like that. I don't really know. Although so it's just a different version. It's not a deck I'm too used to playing against. So we have to discard another card. I think I'll just get rid of this Scalding Tarn. They do have the rack. Okay, so it is a deck with the rack in it. Okay, Electrolyze is pretty solid. We could just get rid of the Liliana here. I think I'm gonna do that. Need to make blue mana off this Hallowed Fountain. And so our hand is all gas, which is not a bad place to be. We have 4 lands. They could have cards like Smallpox, but Smallpox would kill the Goyf off. So yeah, probably not going to see Smallpox. This Tarmogoyf is a large Tarmogoyf. Like it does make sense to play Tarmogoyf in this type of deck as a finisher. There's another Tarmogoyf. So the beats are real with these Goyfs. We could just tap them and draw a card with this Cryptic Command. What I would love to have found here is Path to Exile. That would be the best thing. Alright, here's a Wrench Mind. So I think we're just pitching an artifact to this. Yeah, we're just gonna pitch the Sword of Fire and Ice. We could also just put in this Batterskull end of turn, but it would mean we're taking 12 damage. We could just take the 12, put in the Batterskull, or even block a Goyf with the Stoneforge, so we're taking less damage if we block, and then put in the Batterskull. I kind of like that, is chump and get the Batterskull, because this is gonna allow us to actually start gaining life. The snap is a little bit awkward. We could also play that this turn. I guess another line we could have gone is Snapcaster, Bolt, and block with Batterskull. Don't know if that would be better than this line. So we're just gonna chump and snap Bolt our opponent's face here, and then just have the Cryptic, I think. Barak, okay. Yeah, that's annoying. We're still gonna we kind of just want to try to tempo our opponent out, and that's the plan now. So bolt them. They're at 14. We take 2 down to 6, but then we're gonna gain 6. Might as well cast this Serum Visions. Oh, wow. Well, that's just insane. I mean, that's just an awesome scry. Awesome draw as well. So now we just have double Cryptic. So that's going to put us in a really nice spot to just stop these Goysts from coming in. And we're gaining 4 life on our turn. So the rack isn't going to kill us. So we're just going to use this as like a, a fog type card. Cryptic Command, of course, one of the most versatile cards that blue decks have access to. They found a Death Shadow, which is another surprising card to see. It's annoying to see also. So we drew the Geist. We don't actually have great attacks unless we deal with the Death Shadow. We could just pass and tap these 3 down and then get in again, which I think I'm gonna do. I think I'm just gonna do that. Let's just pass, and then tap these 3 down. We're gonna have 3 cards in our hand, and we can draw like more burn spells, which would allow us to kill our opponent more easily. We can play the Geist at some point, but don't think we needed to this turn. Well, that's bad news. Abrupt Decay. Okay, so that's gonna get rid of our Batterskull. It's not very nice of the opponent to do that. So we still, and they probably just drew that off the top. We did find a path, so we're gonna hope that this Geist is now gonna be the card that we can win the game with, I think. Or we can just try to still burn our opponent out. So what happens if we were to attack with Snapcaster? Our opponent is Hellbent. They have no cards in hand. We could attack them down to 6. Play a Geist. If we had a 7th land, it would be easy from here. I think playing Geist and passing is fairly reasonable. I think I'm going to do that. We do kind of have to fade this one draw step. But an easy line is block with Snapcaster and then Path to Exile one of the creatures. So I assume that they're going to attack with everything. which they will. So, yeah, I'm gonna block the Death Shadow, Path to Exile a Goyf, and then hope that that one card that they drew is a blank, and then we're gonna take a damage off the rack, but then we can go attack with Geist, which is a 6 damage, and then we have the Electrolyze to finish the game off. So it looks like that plan has worked. Interesting deck that our opponent's playing. I think we're going to board in Sword and Feast and Famine. Having protection from black and green seems better in this matchup than having protection from blue and red. So it's nice that we can make that little swap and just have the better sword here. Celestial Purge seems pretty solid. It gets rid of Liliana. It gets rid of Death Shadow. Engineered Explosives. I think that's an okay one to want. Cards that a lot of the burn spells are not amazing in this matchup. Force of Negation is medium also. I think I might rather have a card like Dovin's Veto if we wanted another counterspell, which I don't know that we do necessarily. Weird Tear has some applications. Alright, I think I'm going to take out a couple bolts. We're going to take out one Electrolyze. Just kind of shaves some of the burn. It's okay, but aiming burn spells at Tarmogoyf isn't really what you want to be doing. This is a questionable keep, but I am going to keep it. We keep having hands with the turn 2 Stoneforge, which is kind of nice. We're winning those games, right? That we're playing Stoneforge on 2 most of the time. Now here it could be a 1-mana discard spell, but instead it's actually Cabal Therapist. So we could bolt that. I think we just play the Flooded Strand. Lots of lands, of course. Is this worth bolting right here? I think so. We're just going to play the Glacial Fortress as our land here for turn. And I think we want to get Batterskull. They might have a Liliana coming down, which we could purge it, but then that's not really what we want to be doing. Because they are going to minus and take out the Stoneforge. Ugh, more land. I think I'll just play the Hallowed Fountain tapped and pass because we can do this end of turn, and the plus off this Lily doesn't matter that much. Although now we might actually want to purge the Bitter Blossom. Kind of think we should purge the Bitter Blossom, actually. Because Bitter Blossom plus Therapist seems pretty good. And we might draw... Burn spells can answer the Liliana. So we don't need to Snapcaster right now. They could sack this Therapist and take out our Batterskull. But there goes the tick up on this Liliana of the Veil. So they had to discard a Death Shadow, so we know that, you know, this is hurting our opponent to use this Liliana, just like it's hurting us. Okay, end of turn, Snapcaster Mage. I think I'm gonna go for bolting the Liliana. It might be better to have the Celestial Purge for later. Depends how the game plays out, but we might want to have access to that card to, say, get rid of a big Death Shadow. And we can just hardcast this Batterskull. Now, our opponent might have that Assassin's Trophy like they did in the previous game for it. Hopefully they don't. Alright, they do. I think we just get a basic mountain. Running out of basics, we've drawn a lot of our basics this game. And down comes the Death Shadow. It's only a 2/2, but we do need to top deck something. Not more lands. Inquisition. I mean, any discard spells like that, it's good that our opponent has those in their deck because we want them to be drawing those. Celestial Colonnade is definitely the best land we can draw. And our opponent isn't able to fully utilize the Death Shadow like a true Death Shadow deck. These lands do allow our opponent to take some damage and make their shadow bigger, though. But now we have another line we can take, which is just to try to kill our opponent with this Colonnade. Or this. So what happens if we just activate Celestial Colonnade here? Yeah, I like this line. We're gonna activate the Colonnade. Smash for 4 with it. And then we can post-combat play this Geist of Saint Trap. So that actually gives us 2 different ways to lethal our opponent. And very easy choice to chump on the shadow. But we have to, or else we're dead. And that is the game. Let's win that die roll, shall we? And we did. I think we have to mull this, though. This one is okay. Now, double snap is not great without any fodder for them. I guess I'm gonna put one back. I think that's better than putting a land back here. So plan is to lead Sacred Foundry into Stoneforge. Mountain. Alright, so this could be the mono-red Prowess deck. That's actually an interesting draw. We could Helix the Soul Scar right now, which is pretty appealing. Wonder if we should... Yeah, I think I'll just shock off this Steam Vents and do that. Because this deck generally has lightning bolts. They're going to have ways to potentially get rid of our Stoneforge, and then... Ooh, alright. Well, it's kind of annoying. Don't know for sure if the Helix play was the right one, but drawing bolts, I think we do just go ahead and bolt this. We want to get rid of these creatures when we have the opportunity to do so. And then play a Stoneforge. That's going to get us our Batterskull. And so now if they don't kill the Stoneforge, we can activate it and put the Batterskull out. But they had the bolt. Bomat Courier, that's actually pretty annoying, but we have the ability to go Snapcaster Mage to kill it. So I think we start off by sacking this just to get a basic island. And then we can go Serum Vision, Snapcaster, Lightning Bolt. Or we can go Snapcaster, Helix if we would like to. I think I'd rather go Serum Visions first. Sets up our next couple draws. And we drew an Electrolyze, so actually it's better to Electrolyze here. And to keep the 5th land and another Stoneforge Mystic on top. Go 1-1 here. And we're sitting pretty. We're in a good spot. In a good spot. We can just hard cast the Batterskull, which I think is better than playing a Stoneforge, because there's just not that many ways to deal with it out of a mono red deck. And there's no way that they're going to be able to burn us out. They may have a Bedlam Reveler. They could be trying to set that up. It's probably the best thing they can do. All right, in it comes. We're gaining back those 3 damage points that we'd been taking, and now second Stoneforge gets us our sword. I think I'll just run out the sword because we don't really need to play this snap right now. Okay, they found a Bedlam Reveler, so they do get to draw 3 cards. Still feeling very good, and we're going to move on to the sideboard games. I think we want our Celestial Purge. We're not going to change a ton. I don't want Force of Negation in this matchup. I could see arguments for Explosives, but I think I'm just going to keep... not going to change very much, so I'm just going to keep this, make that one little swap, and resubmit. I will say that the Field of Ruins are kind of not as good when you're playing against a mono red deck, but don't know that we can side. Maybe there's an argument to siding one out on the draw. But I like just having a lot of cheap removal spells, because once you deal with the 1 mana creatures, you're generally in pretty good shape. You don't get... like, if they play, you know, a Soul Scar, a Bomat Courier, or whatever, a Monastery Swift Spirit, and it goes unchecked for a couple turns, then that's where problems start to arise. But this is a very good hand for us. We don't have a 1 mana burn spell, so we can't immediately get rid of the Bomat, but we can start to really make some serious headways on our next turn, depending on what we want to do. There's a Crash Through. So we've got the option of Stoneforge or Lightning Helix, as looks like. Kind of want to Helix and just take out the Bomat before our opponent can draw some cards off of it. I think that's what I'm going to do. Like, we could wait another turn and be a little bit greedy and try to electrolyze it. But we don't know what's in our opponent's hand, so those extra 3 cards could end up being very relevant. Shrine of Burning Rage. That is interesting. That's gonna be a little bit of an issue. We can bounce it with a Cryptic. There's a Manamorphose and a Mountain revealed. I kind of want to electrolyze this, but I also kind of want to play the Geist of St. Traft, so it's not an easy turn. I think I am going to go for the electrolyze play while our opponent's tapped out. But the Shrine is scary. Definitely scary. It requires 3 mana to activate, and then each upkeep it gets another counter. Our hand is pretty stacked though. Another Light Up the Stage. A Braid and Bedlam Reveler. Okay. And our opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spells in graveyard. I think we want to shock ourselves and pass with Cryptic Command mana up. Because remember, these Light Up the Stage cards have to be... If they're not cast on this turn, then they go away. So the Abrade is not really relevant, but the Bedlam Reveler definitely is. Alright, Blood Moon. Blood Moon, huh? I don't think we can afford to let that one resolve. I'm gonna counter it and return this shrine to our opponent's hand. That's gonna save us some damage by resetting the Shrine of Burning Rage. And now we have another decision to make. Well, I think we want to get a Plains off this Flooded Strand. I don't know if we want to play Jace. We can just play Geist, play Stoneforge, get Batterskull. I think that's what I'm going to do. We could also Vendilion Click. But no, I'm just going to go for this Geist. Our opponent certainly could have a Bolt for the Stoneforge. Well, they have another Blood Moon, so that is a bit of an issue. And, wow, and Bedlam Reveler, okay. Wow. That was a pretty good turn for our opponent. The Shrine is at 4. Our opponent has 3 fresh cards in hand. We can play a Snap, but it's not doing us a whole lot, unfortunately. I guess I just pass. I don't see a better line, unfortunately. Now, next turn we can equip the Geist with the Batterskull, potentially. I think I'm gonna do that. Like, they would need a bunch of spells to make... They would need 3 spells to make the Bedlam Reveler big enough to kill it. So yeah, I'm just gonna equip here. And that's our plan. We'll see if it works. They have a bunch of spells. That's bad news. But at the same time, there's not that many spells they can have besides Manamorphoses. So yeah, there's a Manamorphose. They could have Bolt. Like, they could go Manamorphose, Manamorphose, Bolt, or something. Which would be... I mean, that would just be pretty gross. There's a Bolt. Do they have another one? At instant speed. Oh, Lava Dart. Yeah. They did have another one. Really unfortunate. We do get to gain 6, but... Actually, they just had lethal anyways. They just had lethal with these burn spells and with the Shrine. Okay, so I think I made at least one mistake sideboarding, which was not to board in the Wear Tear. For sure should have boarded that card in. Absolutely, that was a mistake. As far as what to take out for it... I think just taking out one Vendilion Click is okay. We had some cards that we just weren't able to deploy that game. That was partially due to the Blood Moon. But our opponent just had a nutty draw. It was even better than our draw. And our draw was quite good. So, pretty easy keep. Turn 2 Stony on the play. Stoneforge Mystic, that is. Looks like our opponent has a bit of a decision because they have not chosen whether to keep or not yet. But it looks like they will be keeping, so we're off to the races. We do have 2 equipments we can find. We have the Sword of Fire and Ice, and we have the Batterskull. We're going to want to get Batterskull first here. Play the Island, which allows us to play the Sulfur Falls untapped later. So we get Batterskull. If our opponent doesn't have a way to get rid of the Stoneforge, we can activate Stoneforge on turn 3. They could have an Abrade. Abrade's another card they could potentially have. Alright, I'm going to play Basic Plains, I think, because that allows us to represent everything, including using a Path to Exile if we would like to. I guess maybe we should have played Scalding Tarn to get another basic to play around Blood Moon, or Vendilion Click to play around Blood Moon, but our opponent doesn't have a Blood Moon. So I'm going to activate Stoneforge, put Batterskull in, and just kind of see what happens from there. Unfortunate, they have the Abrade. Which is, of course, a good, clean answer to our plan, which was Batterskulling our opponent. So here, I think I like playing this other Stoneforge now. And we have the Purge. Purge can deal with cards like Blood Moon. It can deal with any permanent base threat our opponent can play. And the sword our opponent should definitely be scared of Sword of Fire and Ice. I didn't attack with this other Stoneforge because we can activate it this turn to put in the sword. So I guess the question here is, do we want to play around a second copy of Abrade? We could just purge this away. Yeah, I'm actually going to do that. Just means we're taking less damage. Our opponent can't cast a Blood Moon right now. Okay, so now we can just cast a sword, right? That's a reasonable plan. They do have Bomat Courier as a blocker. But I still am going to go on that line. We haven't had a great... Well, we could have cast Vendilion Click, but I've just kind of chosen not to. So our opponent's probably going to chump. I think we attack with this Stoneforge. Maybe the other one. I think that's fine. We're at 14 still. But our opponent has a lot of cards in hand, so this could be like a Bedlam Reveler turn. Lava Dart upstairs. That's gonna... Okay, so that Light Up the Stage reveals a Bedlam Reveler and a Blood Moon, and then there's an Abrade. Wow. Wow. It's pretty sick. Pretty sick. That they had that Abrade. Abrade is really, I mean, it's really good. It's really good in these matchups. We've seen it here take down both our Batterskull and our sword. So I didn't want to Vendilion Click right now because we wanted to, like, we know that these cards are from Light Up the Stage. So here I can play the Vendilion Click. Take a look at what our opponents found off of this Bedlam Reveler. I guess they have a Lava Dart in the graveyard, though. Should probably just take the Light Up the Stage. Not in a great situation, honestly. They can lava... This is why I don't love Vendilion Click. I did sideboard one out. They can Lava Dart the Vendilion Click, which they will be doing. I'm going to Helix the Monastery Swiftspear. So a flurry of cards back and forth. We know that they have... I believe we know that they have a Lightning Bolt as their last card. So, you know, we could still win here. It's going to come down to top decks. We could activate the Celestial Colonnade and hit our opponent with it. I think I will. Getting them from going from 13 to 9 is pretty relevant. Unfortunately, our draw step was nothing. It's just a land. But we can draw, like, if we draw another burn spell, the Celestial Colonnade clock, you know, changes a little bit. So there's that bolt and a Bomat. Okay, so the race is on, really. We're going to be taking 5 down to 11. we can cast the Serum. Wear Tear. Wear Tear was our draw, and then we have a Path and a Helix on top. I think our plan is to win with the Lightning Helix next turn. So I'm just going to top these two cards. This line is ignoring the creatures our opponent has, which I don't think is for sure correct, but like I could have gone Wear Tear this, put Path on top, but with this line I think it's a better line because we can just activate the Colonnade, attack, and then we can use the mana off of it in our second main. Now they could sacrifice the Bomat. They're not going to. Like if they sack Bomat and hit, a bolt and like another spell or something, we could be just dead there. So, but maybe they're playing, as if they're hoping we don't have a burn spell, but we do have one. So there goes the Bomat. And here comes the Lightning Helix to the face. GG. Very close game here. Those Abrades were very annoying for sure. So we are on the draw here. This hand is much more of a controlling based hand. We don't have the Stoneforge Mystic or even a white land. Amulets. Actually, yeah, I don't know if we were supposed to force that. But I didn't, so we're just going to continue on and play the Serum Visions. So we have Flooded Strand and Stoneforge. I'm going to top both. Like, it's tough. I mean, we might end up wanting to use this on like a Pact, right? But Amulet's definitely a very powerful card in the stack. I think I'll just play basic islands. So we can have force. We can have Logic Knot for 1 available to us. Transmute. So that might get the... that's going to get a Pact. Summoner's Pact. Kind of want to hold up Vendilion Click and our counter spells. Okay, so they do naturally have a prime time in hand, so I think we want to prioritize taking that. Explosives could be annoying. We have this Force of Negation, of course. We have the Jace, so we have... And we just drew a Bolt, so we have a lot of cards we can... We have a lot of cards to work with. Question is... Which of these do we want to play this turn? I kind of want the Logic Knot. We could bolt the Tribe Scout. There's definitely value to doing that. Yeah, we're just going to bolt Tribe Scout here and hold up Logic Knot, I think. Not going to play the Stoneforge Mystic. Because if we play Stoneforge, then we can't also bolt and Logic Knot. So this seems like just the safest course of action. And then next turn we untap, we can, we can either play Stoneforge, we can play a Jace if we want to. And maybe I'm supposed to play Shock myself, but it kind of gives the hand away a little bit if we do Shock with the Steam Vents. I'm gonna play it tapped. Okay, second copy of Amulet. We're just gonna we've taken the position of not caring about these amulets. That's the line I've taken on the game, whether you like it or not. So we're just going to have to play through these. Summoner's Pact. So our opponent is going to have access to enough mana to cast a Titan, but not enough mana to then protect it from our Logic Knot. So we can Logic Knot here. I guess just for 2, right? And then now they potentially have to pay for this pact. Well, they do have to pay for this pact. We could force this Ancient Stirrings as well. Guess I'm not going to. Because they can... Okay, I guess Karn the Great Creator, but we can force that, so whatever. Like, we're just holding on to this force until we absolutely need to use it. And we drew Sword. That is an interesting one. Now I kind of want to just jam this Jace. And Brainstorm. Unfortunately, we did not find a fetch land. We also did not find a blue card. So that was a very bad Brainstorm for us. Very bad Brainstorm. They have to pay for this, but they can then play... They can play like a Vesuva to then have another 4 mana, which would allow them to cast the Karn. So down comes Karn the Great Creator. It's going to minus and get Pithing Needle. That actually makes a lot of sense. Wow. Unfortunately, we found no blue cards, so our Jace is just out in the cold here. We can use Stoneforge Mystic if we want to. I guess we know our opponent has an engineered explosives in hand, huh? So I am just going to attack this Karn, play Stoneforge. Unfortunately, we have both of our equipments in hand. I could have stacked the deck differently so that we would have 2 Stoneforges in hand and 1 equipment in our library. I don't think it's going to end up mattering that much, but that might have been better. We still want to search, of course, because we still don't want to draw Stoneforge for our turn. This allows us to have the Force of Negation available. So we can just hard cast it, or we can Helix. Alternatively, Helix is fine. But that was just a very poor brainstorm. So our opponent's just going to be desperately trying to get a Primeval Titan down. We know about Vesuva and explosives. If they naturally draw a Titan and cast it, that would be game. But if they have to... Okay. So they naturally drew a Titan. I do not think I necessarily played this game optimally, but I also don't think the line that I did take worked out. Well, this is interesting. They didn't get the Slayer Stronghold. So they're going to transmute a Teleria West. Cast this Engineered Explosives for 3, which would blow up our Vendilion Click. We can counter it, I guess. I guess I'll counter it. They do have another Pact in hand, though. Just weird that they didn't get the Slayer Stronghold to me. And we found a path. Okay, well, I'm going to activate Stoneforge Mystic, put in a Sword of Fire and Ice here. They should probably realize we have a Path to Exile in hand now. Just based on the way we played that turn, I think it's pretty obvious that we do have one. Alright, they're in their beginning of combat. Well, if they're in beginning of combat, then we want to just do this before they're able to attack. Get that prime time out of here. They have a pack, so they can get another Primeval Titan. Which is what's going to happen here, I think. So they can get this prime time. I guess if they have another explosives in their deck, there's maybe a way for them to get that out. But it was very weird that they did not only did they not get Slayer's Stronghold last turn, but they did not Summoner's Pact for Primeval Titan this turn pre-combat. Because if they go prime time, if they go Summoner's Pact, get Prime Time get Slayer's Stronghold gives the Prime Time haste, then we have to path one of the Prime Times, but then one of them gets to attack, and, you know, being able to attack with the Primeval Titans is very, very swingy, very important. But here it is, Primeval Titan. We'll see what our opponent can do with it, because right now they're facing lethal. So they're maybe going for a transmute play. The question is what they can transmute for. Like, they might have another explosives. But if they do have another, they might have another explosives, but that's not how they're playing this game, because they can only produce blue and green mana. So I guess it's a question of what they could get another Titan. Okay, Walking Ballista. No, that makes sense. Okay. I was thinking it was going to be explosives, but it's Walking Ballista, which makes complete sense. They're able to play it for 4. That's going to get rid of our Vendilion Click. Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. I guess we just have to make them use the Ballista here. Not a good spot to be in. Not a good spot. We can Helix this Ballista, then they ping us for 1 and we play a Geist. Hope not to die. Is that our best line? I guess we don't even necessarily need to ping the Ballista right away. So let's see. If they play the double strike land, they could give this double strike. They still have the Slayer's Stronghold in their deck, potentially. I'm gonna play the Geist out, and I'm just gonna pass. Not sure what's gonna happen, but they have to pay for they do have to pay for 1 Summoner's Pact. We know that much. And we can going Helix face is pretty relevant. Do we know they have the double strike land in hand? This is really a weird situation. Okay. Let's see what they find off of this primetime trigger. Maybe we haven't seen the double strike land yet. Now I'm not remembering. The Sunhome Legion. But we have the Celestial Colonnade as well, so we really are going to be threatening lethal next turn. I guess they could play Vesuva, copy our Celestial Colonnade. That's like one weird line that they could take. Our opponent's really, really in the tank here, seeing what they can do. They don't know about the Helix either. Amulet is a pretty difficult deck to play, and we're seeing it here. Our decisions haven't been quite as complex. They've still been challenging from both sides. Like there's been multiple lines I could have gone differently. Maybe tried to answer the amulets from getting in play instead of some of the other spells. I thought we were going to be just dead. Okay, so they have gone for Radiant Fountain. Okay, so they're going for Radiant Fountain and Ghost Quarter, which means they're not trying to kill us this turn. The Ghost Quarter, though, can deal with... Ghost Quarter can deal with the Colonnade. And the fountain means some additional life. What happens if we Helix the Ballista here? So this Radiant Fountain puts our opponent up. I guess we could also put this Batterskull into play. End of turn. Yeah, so we're just going to let this all happen, I think. If they want to make this Ballista bigger, we're just going to let it happen. Although we could even now, we could still even Helix now, the Walking Ballista. But I don't know that it's better than putting a Batterskull on the battlefield. Not sure. I mean, having the Helix in hand means we can go face with it. I think that's very valuable. We're just gonna let this happen. No blocks, of course. Okay, they have a Sakura Tribe Scout. That does change things for sure. Now they're going for another counter on this Walking Ballista. So it can get up to being a 4/4. But we could still kill it. We have that option. But alright, so what happens if we put in the Batterskull and then we could Helix away the Tribe Scout? Alright, we're just gonna see what happens. Let's put in this Batterskull now. Wow, Cryptic Command. Cryptic Command. That is a pretty crazy draw step. So we could cast that. I think we just cast it because yes, they can only kill one creature with the Walking Ballista. So we can tap our opponent's creatures down. Yeah, we can tap our opponent's creatures down. And then Ballista can kill one thing, but then we still have the Lightning Helix. I think it works. Because remember we're getting the 4/4 Angel off the Geist as well. It's weird that our opponent has done it this way, because I think we could also just equip the sword and win in that manner as well. We could just make this a 4/4. Yeah, so equipping sword on board is lethal. So I think our opponent should not have started pinging there to make us have the Helix, but we did have the Helix. Very, very interesting game. That was a fun one. I thought that was a fun game. Okay. We did win it. Winning is always nice, but now we have to sideboard. All right. Well, so Damping Sphere rather does kind of shut down some of the Karoo. It shuts down the Karoo lands, means that they go and start producing. They're not producing 2 mana, so I think we do want Damping Spheres. We're gonna cut Lightning Helix. We want second Force of Negation. We might actually want Sword of Feast and Famine. I think that's a pretty good one. Is it better than Sword of Fire and Ice? Maybe. We could also just play both of them. I think it's better than Sword of Fire and Ice. I don't know if we want both these equipments or not. Path is a weird one. It was actually pretty good that game, but it's only good once they have a Primeval Titan out. So I think Bolts is generally the card that's more important than Path. Maybe we cut the Sword of Fire and Ice. Yeah. Seems good. Seems good. Bolt. The reason why I like Bolt better is because you can deal with a Tribe Scout or an Azusa early, and like you don't want to path Sakura Tribe Scout on turn 1, right? Weird mana base. We do have double Sulfur Falls in our deck, and we have both in hand. But I'm gonna try it. Wish one of them was not a Sulfur Falls. They have that turn 1 Amulet. We don't even have the option of forcing this game like we did last game. So it's in there. Nothing we can do. And if they play, they could just play a Souza this turn. Potentially. It's always a danger that they can nut draw us. There's the Azusa. But they're holding the Gruul Turf. So definitely just gonna bolt that thing. Pretty marginal draw for us overall. We know that they're sandbagging the Gruul Turf, so they can go Turf, make 4 mana, play a Primeval Titan. But I guess we're just hoping for the best rather than holding a Path. Just feels so conservative here. We're not actually we're not progressing our board or doing much of anything if we hold up Path rather than play Geist. But maybe it's right to just hold it up because it's so likely they're going to play a Primeval Titan. Yeah, I'm going to pass. Maybe they won't won't play one. There's another amulet. That's funny. I mean, if we're able to untap next turn... Alright, well, here's the Gruul Turf. Fireworks are starting. Oh, wow. Wow. I was expecting the Primeval Titan. The Hornet Queen I was not expecting at all. Well, it's not nothing we can do about it. It's on the battlefield. We can bolt it. Sure, I'll bolt it. It's really bad for us, but sure. I'm gonna play out this Stoneforge Mystic. I think we want to get our Sword of Feast and Famine with it. Get the Feast and Famine, pass turn, see what happens. But yeah, that Hornet Queen was absolutely busted there. If we had like a Logic Nod, of course we would have cast it. And here we go again. Gruul Turf means more mana. So I would suspect this turn we will see the Primeval Titan, but you never know. Pretty crazy to draw all of these amulets. So they're just going for bounce land value. They probably have even more gas in hand. So, yep, this is not looking good. And if they transmute a Teleria West and get a Pact of Negation, that's probably game, but I don't know. Maybe they'll get another Summoner's Pact off of it, which is also really bad for us. There's the Pact. Now, the one thing that could maybe happen, we could maybe somehow get our opponent in a situation where they can't pay for the Pact, but it's pretty unlikely. Like, we have the Cryptic Command, so we could bounce one of the lands back to our opponent's hand. But it looks like they're just continuing to go for maximum value. Which makes complete sense. Wow, this is so many Summoners packs. So many packs. This is greedy. To pack this many times is a little bit greedy. They could still get the Slayer's Stronghold. And they're gonna do that. Oh yeah, no, this makes complete sense. What they can do here by making this play is they can now give all of these Titans haste. They're just gonna kill us this turn. They go haste 1, then you get to untap, haste again, so like we could get rid of one, but I don't think it matters. Well, you know, this is a match on MTGO, so the time factor could end up being relevant. I'm not just going to concede. Make our opponent actually put lethal onto the stack here. And we could still path one of them, I guess. But this is what the Amulet deck is capable of doing. Once you get 3 amulets out, and you have an ability, the ability to cast a Primeval Titan. I mean, it's just GG. Alright, so do we want to change anything after that game? That's the question. It might be that we want Dovin's Veto on the play. Still think Damping Spheres are interesting. We saw how Path to Exile is not actually, you know, that amazing. Alright, let's try this. I think we have to mull. This hand is okay. We're definitely keeping it. The question is, what do we put on the bottom? Maybe it's just the Batterskull. Yeah, I'm going to put Batterskull back. Hope to naturally draw a Stoneforge Mystic. Now, Damping Sphere does make the Snap Caster Mage worse, so we just have to be wary of that. We might not want to immediately play out our Damping Sphere. I think I'm just going to bolt this Sakura Tribe Scout. And we can go... We're probably just going to go Snap Bolt. Our hand's not really materializing, but our opponent... I mean, by getting rid of these 2 Tribe Scouts, we're definitely, you know, disrupting our opponent a little bit. I assume they have a bounce land they can play. They're not playing one. This could be an Asuza, also. Also could be Asuza. Okay, Amulet. It's fine. Field of Ruin. We could actually field away the Teleria West. I wonder if that makes sense, considering we have the Damping Sphere to play. And I don't know how many basic forests this deck plays. I want to see what happens here. Alright, so they did have another basic forest. I think there's some versions that don't play that many basic forests, but... Okay, Souza comes down. So they just have a bunch of Teleria West. So the field did not really accomplish anything. At the same time, the Damping Sphere... I mean, they can just potentially hard cast a Prime Time, which would be really bad for us. That is also very bad for us. So that can get rid of our Sphere and our Snap. Very odd game. I guess I'll bolt this, Souza. Our opponent's probably missing either a bounce land or a way to play like a big creature. Alright, end of turn, snap bolt, kill your Souza, hope to draw something. We have cards we can draw. If we don't top deck, then we're probably gonna lose, but you know, any type of non-land, I'll take a non-land. Well, I'm not going to play the Glacial Fortress because we can at least, you know, try to represent a counterspell. But I mean, if our opponent has a way to cast a creature, they're just gonna do it. Looks like they don't though. Okay. Huh. We actually redrew the Batterskull that we had previously put on the bottom of our deck, hoping to draw a Stoneforge. Instead, we drew a Batterskull. It's gonna get negated. So that's going to copy Teleria West. This could be a Primeval Titan. Which it is. Yeah. I mean, the draws just didn't work out for us there. So they can give it haste and then give it double strike. That isn't lethal. It just puts us to only to 1 if they do that. I guess they maybe didn't have the ability to do it. So they're going to get Radiant Fountain and Field of the Dead. That's an interesting one. It makes sense, though. It's kind of a cool addition to the deck. And we are dead. GG.